We're holding, I wouldn't say in the middle of the parak, we're holding towards the beginning. 2 weeks ago, we started the parak and we're talking about the idea of Gechazi and different stories that bring out the idea of Gechazi. Especially 2 weeks ago, we started over. We said that Tzedakah is something that brings out Gechazi. In the Chus of Tzedakah, a person can be zeichet to Gechazi. And we said over a story about Eliyahu and Navi and the woman from Tzarfas, that basically because she helped Eliyahu and Navi and she gave them food and everything, even though she was very poor. So she was zeichet that when her son died, Eliyahu and Navi was able to revive him and bring him back to life. So the schus of her tzedakah brought out Gechazi. Now we're going to move on to, last week we digressed and spoke b'derech klolius about Gechazi. Now we're going to move on to another story that the Medrash is going to bring about Gechazi. And this is about Elisha Hanavi. We know that Elisha is known for being Shariatzak Mayim. Elisha is known for what the pasuk calls pouring water in front of Eliyahu and Navi. Elisha is known for being Eliyahu and Navi's Talmud. He's Eliyahu and Navi's big Talmud, Elisha. And one of the famous stories that we find about Eliyahu and Navi and Elisha is that at the time that Eliyahu and Navi was on his way to be taken back to Shemayim, so he was going for a walk with Elisha, and tell us that they were walking and they were talking in Divrei Torah. And Eliyahu and Navi says to Elisha, he turns to him and he says, "I'll grant you one wish. What? You ask me for one thing, and I'll do it for you." So Elisha says to him, "My wish is the one thing I want to ask you is that I want to be double of you. Pishayim. You were a Navi. I want to be double the Navi that you were." That's what Elisha asked. So Eliyahu and Navi is like thinking to himself, how could I give him something that's more than I have? So Eliyahu and Navi says, "Look, if you're zeichet to see me going up to Shemayim, that's a siman that Hashem is going to give you what you wanted." That's what happened. A fiery chariot came and took Eliyahu and Navi up to Shemayim, and Elisha was zeichet to see that happen. So that's a siman that Elisha became the Talmud of Eliyahu, but more than a Talmud, he became double the Navi that Eliyahu and Navi was. So we know, as I mentioned before, we brought a story of Eliyahu and Navi reviving the child that died, bringing him back to life. So we're going to find that Elisha Hanavi not only brought back one person to life, but he brought back two people to life. So Be'ezer Hashem, we're going to see the first story of the first person that he brought back to life. Because he's double the Eliyahu and Navi. He's the Hemshech, but he has double the Nisim that Eliyahu and Navi had. One nukuda that's more negative to what we spoke about last week, but it's also negative to what we spoke about 2 weeks ago. We spoke about whether Eliyahu and Navi was married. We said that he was hanging out with this almana from Tzarfas, and there was like a little bit shady. It sounded a little bit shady that he was with a Chavakuk living in the house of an almana like that. How does that work? So we spoke about. So one of the things we said was maybe he was. So I happened to speak to somebody about this issue that we spoke about 2 weeks ago. A friend of mine named Rabbi Arnie Wittenstein. So he wanted to say that even though normally Tabachachim is not allowed to live in the same chatzar as an almana, but by Eliyahu and Navi there was a special hiras shah that he should, because Hashem told him, "Go to this lady in Tzarfas, and she's going to be machal Eliyahu." So it's a hiras shah that he should have to live there. Well, the other idea that we spoke about at that point was that maybe he was married and his wife was with him, even though the pasuk doesn't mention that his wife was with him. So I found on this past Friday, there's a sefer Emes Yaakov from Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky. So there's a new volume, Emes Yaakov Anach, which just came out like within the last year or so. So Emes Yaakov Anach, Melachim Aleph, Perek Tes, Pasuk Beis. He brings down. He writes, "I'm a supik if Eliyahu and Navi and Elisha were married in these stories." You're going to see a similar story with Elisha. He writes, he's Mesupik. He brings two things that might be potential rayas, and he says that they're not a raya. The first thing he says is that when Eliyahu and Navi is told by Hashem to appoint Elisha as his successor as a Navi, so Elisha is like, "Well, I have to ask my parents." So he goes back and asks his parents for rishus to go off with Eliyahu. So Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky reasons, well, why did he have to ask his wife? So that sounds like he's married, right? So this is no, it's not a raya because there's halacha in Ibn Ezra that a Talmid Chacham is allowed to leave his wife for a certain amount of time to go learn Torah. So it's not a raya that he wasn't married. So maybe he was married. He's not mechuyev to ask his wife. Okay, could be.
I happened to talk about this issue of talking to your wife today.
Yeah.
And someone mentioned there's only 2 places in all of Torah where a person consults his wife.
Yaakov Avinu.
No. Asks their advice. I don't know. Didn't
Well, Yaakov Avinu with his wives he met them in the field when they were going to leave Lavan.
He told them things. He didn't.
He told them, or he asked them. Not sure.
So the 2 places that I was told were Haman
And Manoach.
Russia, and Eliezer ben Azariah in Brachos, when he was asked to become the Rosh Hashiva.
Yeah.
He went home to ask his wife. Apparently those are the
Interesting.
2 places where ask their wife for.
So I'll call upon him. So fine. So he wanted to bring a raya that maybe Elisha was not married, and he says no, it's not a raya. Then he wants to bring another raya. We mentioned last week that there's a Trumas Hadeshin, a famous Trumas Hadeshin brought down also in the Ber Heitev and Evan Ezra Siman Yud Zayin. The Trumas Hadeshin says that the wife of Eliyahu and Navi, she's allowed to get married to somebody else because she's considered an almana. She's not considered married because Eliyahu and Navi went to Shemayim. He's considered as if he's dead. Right? So does that sound like Eliyahu and Navi had a wife? Oh. So I was going to thinking about this, but I didn't want to say it. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky doesn't say it exactly the way I was saying. Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says, yeah. No, the Trumas Hadeshin wasn't asking this as a Lamaisa Shaila, who's saying, theoretically, if Eliyahu Navi had a wife, what would the din of his wife be? That's what Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky says, yeah. Now, I was thinking a little bit even stronger than that. The Shach in a few places in the Pirush on Shulchan Aruch, the Shach brings down that the Trumas Hadeshin is a fake. You know this? No. The Trumas Hadeshin, the questions that are brought down in the Trumas Hadeshin are fake questions.
That's pashtus. I thought
What?
that. I thought that's true.
What's true?
I was told that all the questions of the Trumas Hadeshin
They never happened. Right. Yeah, that's what I mean. The questions in the Trumas Hadeshin, he thought of the questions, and then he just wanted to say the the answer, and that's what he says, right? As opposed to conventional shilas and shuvas, the shilas were real shilas and the shuvas were written to answer up those shilas. But the Trumas Hadeshin, he wrote the questions and then he wrote the answers. So I wanted to say he made up the question. It's like there's no mysterious that Eliyahu Navi was married and he was bothered with that mysterious what it didn't be. No, he made it up and then he wanted to bring out the point that he was trying to say. I'll go upon him. That's that. But let's go back. We're up to the words of Bishub and Karcha Omer. We're about to start right now.
Sorry, I know, traffic.
Traffic? You live across the street.
I have that excuse. I drive.
Okay. Well, we're on page Reish Ayin Ches in your edition. Rabbi Shub and Karcha says, he says this. V'al ze'at tamei. 2 weeks ago we mentioned the story of Eliyahu and Navi being supported by the Isha from Tzarfas, and she gave him tzedakah or whatever, and because of that she was zeicha to have disobeys. So Rishon B'Karcha is saying that's a big story. They want to bring out the point that tzedakah can bring you to disobeys. I'll tell you an even bigger raya from a different story, of the story of Elisha. The Radha makes 2 points of it. The Radha says, first of all, Eliyahu and Navi, the tzedakah that she did by Eliyahu and Navi was very big tzedakah, because first of all, it was in a time of famine, because there was no food around. In the stores you couldn't even get food. So the fact that she gave food to Eliyahu and Navi, that's a huge thing that she did. So maybe only that type of tzedakah can be zecher to tzedakah. And second of all, she helped out Eliyahu and Navi. Eliyahu and Navi was there all by himself. So if you help out somebody who's all by himself, so then it's a big chiddush. So then that's the chesed. But over here, we're going to see by Elisha that the story of Elisha happened. It wasn't in a time of famine, and this lady is still going to be mefarnes Elisha. She's still going to give him food. And the story with Elisha, he wasn't by himself. He had his attendant with him, Gechazi, which we're going to see exactly what happens to Gehazi also. But Gehazi was with Elisha, and still, we're going to say that it was such a big schus that she helped him out that she's going to be zeichet at Ches Mesim. So Rabbi Shimon Koch is saying that this story over here is going to be an even bigger chiddush. Come and see, may Elisha ben Shaphat, from the story of Elisha ben Shaphat, the Navi Elisha, the Elisha ben Shaphat, he was a big Navi, he was a big tzaddik, and no woman was able to look at his face without dying. What does that mean? Well, the Barzeh says that means that he was so kadosh, he was so ruchniistic that he looked like a malach. If you look at a malach, like a malach is like made out of fire. If you get a malach and die, pashtus. So the women, they felt like they would die if they looked straight at Elisha. Like they couldn't even look at him. That's how holy he was. And Elisha would travel from mountain to mountain and from cave to cave. The Radal points out that we find by Eliyahu and Navi, it's explicit in the Psukim that Eliyahu and Navi was traveling around from place to place or whatever. But we don't find by Elisha that he was going from mountain to mountain and cave to cave. So where do we see that by Elisha? So the Radal says, based on the axiom that I said before, that Elisha is the Talmud of Eliyahu and Navi. So whatever Eliyahu and Navi did, you can assume that Elisha is continuing that same mahalach. So even though it doesn't say explicitly in the Psukim that Elisha was going from mountain to mountain and from har to har, from mountain to mountain and from ma'ara to ma'ara, to cave, you can assume that Elisha was doing the same thing because that's what his rabbi did as well. The Radal doesn't say it exactly the way I just said it, but that's more or less what he says. Now, V'halach l'shunim, he went to this place called Shunim. V'kibalta Isha Gedola b'chavei gadol, and a important woman, let's say, greeted him or accepted him with great honor, and she took him into her house. And we're going to see that she was machnas oreach with him. Now the Medrash says two interesting points about who this woman is. She's just known as the Ishah Shunamis in the Psukim, and just calls her the Shunamite Woman. Who was this Shunamite woman? So the Medrash over here is going to say 2 points about who she was. It'll bring us to some interesting discussions. Who was she? First of all, Avishag Shunamis. Says the Medrash, she was the sister of Avishag Shunamis and Ishah Shel Iddo Hanavi, and she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi.
Who was the wife of
this woman, this Ishah Shunamis, that's going to be the host of Elisha Hanavi. So she was the sister of Avishag Shunamis, because Shunamis, they're both called Shunamises, and she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi.
Where does it say and? It sounds like it says like she was the sister of Avishag Shunamis, and Avishag Shunamis was Ishto Shel Iddo Hanavi.
I hear why you would think that.
I don't think.
No, because it doesn't say vav. It sounds like it's saying one hemshah.
Yeah.
But
and who was that? Ishto Shel Iddo Hanavi. That's what it says here.
The Seder. You're asking a good question. The pashtus is mamish not like that, and I'll explain. First, we have to discuss who is Avishag Shunamis, and then you'll see why it's like impossible to say that she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi.
I agree with you. Just like that's how the Medrash writes it.
Yeah. Okay, it doesn't say V'ishtei. Okay, I hear. Okay, who is Avishag Shunamis? Does anyone know?
If not, why is this Avishag Shunamis so important that it should come before the Iddo Hanavi?
Well, Avishag Shunamis lived before. Maybe.
The Medrash is saying she was the sister of Avishag Shunamis, which we could infer that it's more important to say that than say that she was the wife of the Iddo Hanavi.
Also, because the pasuk calls her Shunamis, so like the first one is more a drasha that's in line with the pasuk, and the second one is just like stam Kabbalah the Chazal are putting into here. Pashtus. Okay, so who is Avishag Shunamis? Does anyone know who Avishag Shunamis was? Okay, so there's a story in the beginning of Sefer Malachim, which is the Haftarah for Parshas Vayechi, that David HaMelech is very old, and in his old age, he's very cold, and the clothing is not able to warm him up. So it says that he searched out he searched out for all the young virgins or whatever to find a beautiful woman who's going to be able to lay down with him and warm him up. That's what it says in the Pesukim with that. And who did they find? The most beautiful woman in that time was Avishag Shunamis, and she was the lady. She was the lady that laid down with him to warm him up. He never married her. It was just to keep him warm. What? A companion. No, it wasn't even a pelagish. It wasn't even a pelagish. It was a companion. I'll tell you now why I think the story with Avishag Shunamis was that after David Melech died, and before David Melech died.
It's just a warm him up. Why? It's not a topic, but it has to be beautiful.
What? I don't know.
David Melech.
You have to know what it means to warm him up. I don't know. But yeah.
He's the king.
That's what one of the Farshim says. Because he's the king, so it's like just like the king, if he's going to drink from a cup, he's not going to drink from like one of these Israeli plastic cups. He's going to drink from a big fancy silver cup or gold cup. So if he's going to use something to keep him warm, he's not going to use like some dinky little space heater. He's going to use like a fancy something that's nice thing to heat him up. But the Mepharshim really say that.
The king should always see beautiful things. He should always be amongst the best. And this was not sexual. So that's not. He was just there for.
Anyways, so the story goes basically that before David Melech died, so his son Eliyahu made a revolt and tried to become king. And then after they solidified, they said, no, really Shlomo is going to be the king after he dies. And they came out that was what's going to be. Shlomo was going to be king. Then David Melech dies. Shlomo becomes king. And then Eliyahu says, he speaks to Shlomo Melech's mother, to Bathsheba. He says, can you ask Shlomo if I can marry Avishag Shunamis? So Shlomo Melech takes that. What? You want to marry Avishag Shunamis? That's considered a sign of rebellion, and he kills Adoniah. What does that mean? Because there's a rule that something that the king used, a commoner can't use that afterwards. So when Adoniah wanted to marry Avishag Shunamis, there was, in a sense, he was trying to show that no, Shlomo, you're not the only king. I also have some sort of right to the kingdom. That's why I can marry her. And Shlomo realized that, and that's why he killed him, because the guy is rebelling against the king, married Malchus. So it's impossible to. So in light of that, I would say it's quite impossible to say that Avishag Shunamis was the wife of Iddo and Avi. So it has to be that the Pshat in our Medrash is that this lady that we're talking about was the sister of Avishag Shunamis and the wife of Iddo and Avi. Not that Avishag Shunamis was the wife. The sister was the wife. Right, the same. The problem is like this. The problem is, and the Mepharshim speak about this. Avishag Shunamis, when did this happen? In the time of David Melech, at the end of the days of David Melech. Now, our story over here with Elisha Hanavi, when did this happen in relation to the story of David Melech? Many, many years afterwards. Be'erach 130 years after David Melech died was the story of Elisha Hanavi. The Marzu makes the cheshbon. He says you have 40 years of Shlomo Melech plus 22 of Yeravam from the first king of Yisrael, 24 of Basa, 2 of Elah, 12 of Omri, 22 of Achav, 2 of Achaziah, 12 of Yehoram. The Berach comes out to over 130 years of that elapsed from when David Melech died until where we're holding over here this story of Elisha, which is happening in the lifetime of Yehoram the son of Achav. So it's very difficult to say that this woman who was Machnes Areach, the one who's hosting Elisha Hanavi, is the sister of somebody who lived 130 years prior. So the Marzu says that maybe Achaisa is Lavdafka. It doesn't literally mean sister, it just means from her family. Or her Bas Achaisa, her niece, which is a little bit more, we can understand that, or from her family, something like that, and he says Tzarchim. The Radal is not so bothered by this question. He just says that we're going to see, like from the Hamshach of the story, that she was taka old. So he says, yeah, she was old. Yeah, she was 130 years old or something. He says that it could be that her father gave birth to her. Her father was much older, Avishag, who lived 130 years earlier, was like the younger sister, was the older sister, sorry, and this is like the younger sister. That's still a little, it's still shver, but it's a little bit less shver. That's what the Radal suggests. Okay, now, so the other point, we said that she's the wife of Iddo Hanavi. Does anyone know who Iddo Hanavi is? We actually mentioned Iddo Hanavi a few weeks ago. And we spoke about the split between Malchus Yisrael and Malchus Yehuda. So Yeravam, who was the first king of Malchus Yisrael, so he made his own mizbeach. Over there, he made his own the calves, one in Dan and one in Beisel, and he said the people should worship those calves instead of going to Yerushalayim. He had political reasons because he didn't want them to see the Melech sitting down in the Azar, etc. That's the story of Yeravam. Alright. So it says over there, the Psukim, that Hashem sent a Navi to go speak to Yeravam. The Navi Iddo Hanavi. Iddo Hanavi, actually his name's not really mentioned in the Psukim, but Chazal tells us that it was Iddo Hanavi. His name is mentioned elsewhere, but Iddo Hanavi goes to give, Hashem gives him a mission, go to the city, tell Yeravam off for what he's doing, and come back, don't eat anything, don't speak to anybody, just go do it and come back, whatever, right? Fine. And he goes, and this is the story that we mentioned, that Yeravam was at his mizbeach, about to be makir of his karbanos, and this Navi comes in, and he starts talking to the mizbeach, oh, mizbeach, in the future, what's going to happen on this mizbeach is that the priests of Avodah Zarah are going to be burnt in this spot at this mizbeach, and then we said it was like very dramatic. The Yeravam was like about to move his hand to say like get this guy away. His hand froze, etc. That's the story of Iddo Hanavi. What I didn't mention was that on his way back, Iddo Hanavi bumped into a false prophet, a Navi Sheker. And basically the Navi Sheker said that I had a nevuah that said you should come and sit down and eat with me. Even though Hashem told Iddo Hanavi not to eat with anybody, not to speak to anybody, whatever. So this false Navi tricked Iddo. Iddo sat down, he ate with the guy, whatever. And then he left, and a lion came and ate him. That's what it says in the Psukim. Because he went against his nevuah. Hashem told him don't eat with anybody. And he went, he ate with him. So then the lion came and ate him. That was Iddo Hanavi's punishment. That's who Iddo Hanavi was. He was the great Navi in the time of Yeravam ben who was eaten by a lion in the end, yeah. So now, over here we're saying that this woman, the Ishah Shunamis, who accepted Elisha into her house, she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi. The problem is like this, and the Radal points out this problem. The problem is that in the story of Iddo Hanavi, he died. He died in the story, or let's say 90 years earlier, right? Because we made the cheshbon of 130 years. That was including the 40 years of Shlomo. So take out the 40 years of Shlomo. So you get 90 years to the beginning of the reign of Yeravam ben Nevat. 90 years previously, Iddo Hanavi was killed in the story with the lion. So you're telling me she's the wife of Iddo Hanavi? He died 90 years earlier. What will you say? So what would you say? The Radal says that rather what you have to say is that she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi. Yes, he died, like we said in the Psukim, but she married somebody else. And for some reason, the Medrash is calling her the wife of Iddo Hanavi. It's still shver, because in the continuation of the story, we're going to see that she's married and whatever, her husband is old, whatever, old. But the implication of the Medrash saying that she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi would be that Iddo Hanavi is the husband that we're talking about. And if you want to say that, no, she was the wife of Iddo Hanavi who happened to die 90 years earlier and now she's married to somebody else, it's like, that's not Parshat Pshat in what the Medrash is saying. So it's a shtigl doichak. So Radal brings what?
So, just maybe, I'm trying to get the cheshbon.
Yeah.
Avishag Shunamis.
Yeah.
It's around David Melech.
Yeah.
And Iddo was around the time of Yeravam, which is a couple generations later.
Well, Avishag Shunamis lived at the end of David Melech's reign, right?
He was youthful.
Okay. Yeravam ben Nevat was the king after Shlomo Melech.
Yes.
Shlomo was king for 40 years.
Yes.
So this isn't so shver because this is only 40 years later.
Okay.
But
then, and then Iddo was then.
yeah,
Oh, and then Iddo was.
right.
Okay.
So the Radal says another point. The Radal brings a different girsa. Not that it says the wife of Iddo Yanavi, but the alternate girsa says that she was the mother of Iddo Yanavi. That's the Radak. When the Radak in his Pirush on Nach brings down this Pirkei of Eliezer, he says it was the mother. I'm sorry, but it's not the wife of Iddo Yanavi, but the mother of Iddo Yanavi. That's what I was saying. Now, this woman, the Ishah Shunamis, was the mother of Iddo Yanavi. And the Marzu points out that the Yalkut Shemini, when he brings down this Pirkei of Eliezer, also says that she was the mother of Iddo Yanavi, not that she was the wife of Iddo Yanavi. So you could say that, yeah, this lady, her son, Iddo Yanavi, died 90 years earlier. Right? But then the Radal makes another point. He says that maybe it's a mistake, and instead of saying Iddo, it's supposed to say Oded. There was a Navi named Oded who was brought down into Rayam and Beis Parak Tezvav, who was a Navi at the time of Asa. Now Asa was the king before Yehoshaphat. Yehoshaphat was the king in the time of Elisha. So that's like already, it's like a little bit like one generation, not so many years. So you could say that she was the mother of this Navi Oded, or the wife of this Navi Oded. I'm not sure exactly what you would say if you say this Gersa. Why? The other point is like this. Now, obviously, if we're saying that she's the mother of the Navi Iddo, yeah, so this kid that we're going to talk about that's going to die, and Elisha is going to bring him back to life, is obviously not Iddo Navi, because Iddo Navi died 9 years earlier, because he lived already in the time of Yeravam and Avah. So it's obviously a different kid. Fine. Now, the Radal makes another point. The Radal brings from the Zohar in two places, the Zohar in the Hakdama and the Zohar in Parshas B'Shalach. The Zohar says a big chiddush. The Zohar says that this kid, the daughter of the son of the Shunamis that dies, and Elisha is going to bring him back to life. So this kid is Chavakuk Hanavi. Chavakuk Hanavi. And I found, it happens to be that I heard this when I was a little kid. Like my father must have told this to me when I was a little kid. Because like when I was reading this, I'm like, oh, I thought the kid was like the son of Chavakuk. I thought this kid was Chavakuk. And I'm like, oh, the Zohar says it. I don't know where I knew this from, but the Zohar says it over here. And then, interestingly, I found that the Pirush Rekeach on Keheles, Per Gimel Pasuk Hey, as well as on the Haftarah to the second day of Shavuos, which is we read Chavakuk on the second day of Shavuos. So the Pirush Rekeach in both of those places says that this kid, the son of the Shunamis, is Chavakuk, like the Zohar. Which is a shtugal chiddush, because you don't usually find that the Rekeach says the same thing as the Zohar. So this sort of like, this is one of the rayas you could say is like that proves the veracity of the Zohar, because the Rekeach is for the Zohar, from before the Zohar was printed, and he's saying a chiddush that also appears in the Zohar. So it tells you that the Zohar that whatever the Kabbalah that the Zohar is saying was something that existed also in Ashkenaz, where they had that same Messiahs. And they weren't like copying from the same person or whatever. They're independent messiahs. But Al Kapanim, the Radal says that if you learn that kid is Chavakuk, like the Zohar says, and then I'm saying that the Pirush Rekeach says, so he says that you have to say that argues on the Medrash that says that this lady was the mother of Iddo Yanavi. That's what the Radal says. Now, I don't understand why the Radal has to say this. And then I found that the Seder Deris brings what I'm about to say, Lishem, the Sefer Zera Beirach, in Parshas Kedoshim, that you could say that she's the mother of Iddo, and Iddo died 90 years prior, and then now she's the mother of Chavakuk, and Chavakuk is going to be the kid that we're going to talk about, who's going to be born and then die, and Elisha's going to bring her back to life. Why is it a steer to say that she's the mother of Iddo and to say she's the mother of Chavakuk? It's not a steer. The Radal says it's a machlokes midrashim. The Zera Beirach that the Seder Deris brings down says, no, it's not a machlokes midrashim. First she was the mother of Iddo, now she's the mother of Chavakuk. What's the steer? Okay. Now let's actually get to the story. V'kibaltoi b'chovei gadol. So this lady, the Ishah Shunamis, whoever she was, she accepted Elisha into her house with great honor. Amra Isha Levaila. The woman said to her husband, Ish ha'elikim hazeh kodeshu. This man of God is holy. Ein Isha yachadol estakda b'fanam shalei somos. He was able to look at his face without dying, because he's so holy that people couldn't look at him. So let's, Shinamah says the pasuk, Nasa Elias Kir Ktana. Let's make for him an attic, a small attic. And every time he's passing through our city, through Shunem, so he can stay at our house as a guest. He'll live over there in that attic. So the Medrash says, Uvanu ve'echinum ve'eskinu. They built it, they prepared it, and they set it up. So with these three Lashonos, they built it, prepared it, and they set it up. So the Radal says they built it means they built that attic. They prepared it means they prepared for him, the necessities that he needs: a bed, a table, a chair. And his skin, they set it up. They set up a menorah. They set up a lamp for him to have light in this attic. The Marzuz says it slightly differently. He says that Hichinu is going on the bed, the chair, the table, and the lamp. And Hiskinu just means that they set up everything in its place. More or less the same idea. After some time, he passed through Shunem. Elisha Navi passed through the city of Shunem. But Yasser el Aliyah. And he removed himself and he went to that attic. And that's where he stayed. Shunem writes on the pasuk, Vayi hayoim, it was that day. But Shaman, he went there. But he called this Ishah Shunamis, called the lady. Shunamite says in the pasuk, Vayikra lo batamar pasach. He called her and she stood at the entrance. He called her, he wanted to speak to her, and she stood at the entrance. Now the question is, well, if he called her, so he's saying, you come over here, I want to speak to you. So why is she standing by the entrance? She's come to him. She called her over. Why is she standing at the entrance? She should go over to him. He called her over. So the Medrash again, because she can't look at his face because he was so holy that she felt like if she would look at his face, she would die. Fine. Amala. What did Elisha have such an important message to say to her? Amala, he said to her, Lamayid hazeh ka'is chaya ad chavekes bein. At this time, ka'is chaya means like this time next year, it's an expression, ad chavekes bein. You will be hugging a child. Amrullah, so she said to him, my master, meaning my husband, is very old. And I'm post-menopausal. I don't have my period anymore. This matter is impossible to happen, that I'm going to have a kid next year. Or it's impossible for this thing to be. Why are you saying that I'm going to have a son next year? I'm too old. My husband's old. I'm old. No, my master, man of God, don't lie to your servant. How can such a thing be? Don't lie to me. If you're saying that I'm going to be hugging a child next year, it better be true. Don't play around with me. Which, Agav, it sounds, it's mashma shtickle from here that she didn't have kids before. No? Not mashma, not necessarily. Well,
I would say she wouldn't be the mother of Iddo.
Right.
And first of all, I thought that if she was the mother of Iddo, that was a long time ago.
Right, that could be. She was.
Chavakuk,
Yeah.
She'd be too old, is what she's saying now.
Yeah, it's true.
That would be a problem.
I don't know. I was just thinking that it sounds. I don't know why. It feels like maybe she didn't have kids before, for some reason. I'm not sure why.
Because the continuation of the story, because she was so attached to this kid, and what happened to her, I don't know.
Alright, we'll see. Okay. So now, the Medrash is going to say that the pasuk says that afterwards she got pregnant, she had a kid. But the Radal explains that the Medrash is bothered by that we don't find in the psukim that it says that Elisha davened for her that she should have a kid. It's like, why did she have the kid? Like, where did it come from that she should have a kid? So Zechariah says, Ritzayin Yireh of Yasem. Ritzayin Yireh of Yasem. We're talking about Hashem. Ritzein Yireh Yasa. Hashem does Ritzein Yireh, the will of those who fear Him. Hashem did the will of the prophet, and she became pregnant, and she gave birth. Right? There's this concept that we have, Tzaddik Gezer Kadosh Baruch Hu, when if a Tzaddik decrees something, he says something's going to happen, so Kadosh Baruch Hu, because the Tzaddik follows what Hashem says, so Hashem is going to follow what the Tzaddik says, so Hashem is going to do what the Tzaddik wants. So Elisha, even though it doesn't say Elisha davened for this to happen, but Elisha, felt such gratitude for the Ishah Shunamis, and he wanted her to have a kid, so Hashem made it that she had a kid, just because the Navi wanted it to happen. Tzaddik Gezer Kadosh Baruch Hu. It's something that the Chassidim say, this idea. Tzaddik Gezer Kadosh Baruch Hu B'Kaim. By Litvishers they say the opposite. Kadosh Baruch Hu Gezer V'Tzaddik B'Kaim. Right. The child grew up. And he went out. He was growing up. I believe someone said that he's like maybe 4 or 5 years old. I don't remember exactly the cheshbon. But he went out lefugas nefesh, for a nice breeze, for a stroll, to watch the harvest. It was in the middle of the summer. He went to watch the harvest. And an accident happened to him. It says in the pasuk, it says he went out to his father, to the harvesters, and he died. That doesn't say what happened over here. Why did he die? So the Radha brings the Yerushalmi in Sachas Yivamis, in Perek Tezvav. The Yerushalmi says that it was the middle of the summer, and it was really hot, and he apparently got some sort of heat stroke. And that's what it says in the pasuk that he said Reishi before he died. Something happened to his head that he was too hot for him or whatever, and he ended up dying. The kid. But so the kid dies. The woman went to Mount Carmel to go find Elisha, to go complain to Elisha. And she fell on her face on the ground in front of Elisha. She said to him, she hints to what happened. She said to him, Halavai shahaisali kli rekam. Halavai, if only I would have an empty vessel. Rather, what happened instead of me having an empty vessel, it was full and it was poured out. Meaning, she's saying I would have been better off if you didn't give me this son. Right? Halavai would have been empty without this son. Well, now what happened? You gave me this son. You filled up my vessel and it was poured out. You gave me this son and he died. Right? And now I'm worse off. I would have been better off if you didn't give me this son. Omar Navi. So Elisha said to her, "Kol davar shekadosh baruch hu oseh hayamagidli." Everything that Hashem does, or hayamagidli, He would tell me, chutz v'zoi, except for this. Hashem never told me that this was going to happen. So I guess she's complaining to him, when you told me I'm going to have a son, so I assume, I'm really going to have a son. And now that the son dies, it's you lied to me or something. So he said, no, don't have time to me. Usually Hashem tells you what's going to be in the future. In this instance, Hashem did tell you what's going to be in the future. Shirama, it says in the pasuk, and the Medrash doesn't bring the whole pasuk, but I'll read you the whole pasuk. The pasuk says, the Medrash says, "Vatave Elisha Elikim." She went to the man of God. Vayigash Gechazi lahadfa. Gechazi came to push her away, etc., etc., etc. Vayomer Ishah Elikim harpela, and the man of God said, harpela, leave her loose. Kinafsha marala, because her soul is bitter to her. Hashem heli mimeni. Hashem hid it from me. And Hashem didn't tell me. So that's the pasuk that Elisha is saying. Hashem didn't tell me that this is what was going to happen. But so the pasuk said that the actual lashon of the pasuk is Vatavai el Isha Elikim el Har. She went to the man of Hashem, of God, to the mountain, to Har Carmel. But Gechazi b'raglav, and she grabbed onto his feet. That's lashon of the pasuk. She grabbed onto his feet. I mean, she came over and she grabbed onto his feet and started begging him. I was just thinking earlier, how many times do we find in Tanakh a woman begging a man to do something, and she goes to his feet to beg him? So it says in Megillas Esther that we just read a few days ago, she fell in front of his feet when she was going to beg him. Right? And the other pasuk, and then we have this pasuk, and my wife Tainat maybe also like by Rus and Boaz, she uncovered his feet in the middle of the night and asked him to marry her. I wonder if there's more instances of like going to the man's feet to ask him to do something. Upon him, so she goes to Elisha's feet, right, and she's begging him. And what does the pasuk say? Vayigash Gechazi lahadfa. Gechazi came to lahadfa, to push her away. And Vayomer Isha came, and Elisha said back. Elisha said to Gechazi, "No, harpela, let her loose. Don't grab her away. Don't loosen your grip on her, whatever." Because she's nafsha marala, because her soul is bitter, and Hashem didn't tell me that this was going to happen, so she's upset. But don't push her away. That's what Elisha Navi said back to Gechazi. So now the Medrash is going to darshan what happened over here with Elisha and Gechazi. Okay, so it says Vayigash Gechazi lahadfa. Gechazi approached to push her away. What does it mean lahadfa? Achza Bahoid Yafya. We're darshaning the word hadfa, which literally means to push her away. We're darshaning it to mean Achsa, he held her Bahoid Yafya. Like hadfa is like Haid Yafya. It's like a contraction of those two words, Haid Yafya. What does Haid Yafya mean? It means the glory of her beauty. He grabbed her at the glory of her beauty. What does that mean? It says the Medrash, Melamed Shunasan Yodai Al Gabe Dadeha. Gechazi put his hand upon her breast. That's what Gechazi did. What?
Also Rashi explains it like that.
Oh.
In an oven.
Also Rashi explains it like that. Yeah. Which Rashi?
In
Brachos.
In Brachos, in the Pasuk. When it brings the Pasuk in Brachos, it brings that.
Rashi in Sefer Malachim doesn't say it. Now, the Gemara in Brachos, what's that like this? The Gemara in Brachos says.
Maybe Rashi in Gemara, I don't remember.
The Gemara says it.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
The Gemara in Brachos says that, what does it mean, lahadfa? The Gemara says, Haid Yafya, the glory of her beauty. The Gemara doesn't explain what that means. Rashi comes along, and Rashi says that it's talking about that he grabbed her on her breasts. Bidadeha.
So he's just learning from here.
Yeah.
So Rashi stores Chodesh is Pirkei Eliezer. Interestingly, Rav Nissim Goy in his Pirush on Brachos says between her breasts, not on her breast, like Rashi says, and sounds like over here.
It's gonna push her. It's like when you push someone, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like this.
Yeah. But it sounds like Gechazi is mutter to say something bad about Gechazi because Gechazi was Russian and so it sounded like Gechazi was pushing her away, but he was also trying to chaparine, grabbing a feel or something like that.
What was he doing there?
Well, who Gechazi? That's a separate issue. What was Gechazi doing over there? But we'll see. Gechazi messes up again in a few minutes, but we'll get to another thing that Gechazi messes up about. But Rashi says that it was on her breasts. Rav Nissim Goyen says it was between her breasts.
What's that in between?
Rav Nissim Goyen in his Pirush on Brachos. Now I found an interesting shtuk. Like it was this like I happened to be like looking up something else that I came across this. The Ben Ish Chai has a sefer on Mesachos on Garata Gemara called Ben Yahu, and there's another sefer called Ben Yahu. Ben Yahu and Ben Yehoyada. Sorry, Ben Yahu and Ben Yehoyada. So in the sefer Ben Yahu on Mesachos Brachos, so the Gemara says Haid Yafya, the glory of her beauty, right? So the Ben Ish Chai in Ben Yahu says that the Marsha explains that Haid Yafya means her breasts. It says, and I want to argue, and I want to say that Haid Yafya means either her eyes or her forehead. That's what the Ben Ish Chai says. So here now, my problem is that it's not a Marsha. Marsha didn't say it's a Pirkei Eliezer. It's a Rashi. Why is he saying it's a Marsha? So this is what I came up with. I think the pshat is like this. If you look in the Ein Yaakov, so the Ein Yaakov has, it has Rashi and has Marsha in it, etc. That in the Ein Yaakov on this Gemara in Brachas Daf Yudam Beis, so the Ein Yaakov, this Rashi that I mentioned to you is missing. That Rashi is not printed in the Ein Yaakov, and the Marsha doesn't. The Marsha is Batsim quoting Rashi, but the Marsha says the same thing as Rashi. And the Marsha is masber a little bit more. He says that Harfa is like the Noirikun for the words Haydiyafia, and it means her breasts. And he's referring to Rashi. But I guess the Ben Ishai didn't look at the Gemara. The Ben Ishai was looking at the Ein Yaakov, and in the Ein Yaakov there was no such Rashi, and it was the Marsha. Because the Marsha, so he brings out the Marsha, he argues with the Marsha. But like we have it as a Rashi, so it's funny that he says that. But the Ben Ishai wants to say that Hayd Yafia, the glory of her beauty, is talking about her forehead or her eyes. I don't remember exactly what his rayas were. I think one of the rayas is there's a Gemara that says that if a woman has beautiful eyes, you don't have to check the rest of her body. You can know that she's beautiful. If she doesn't have beautiful eyes, then you have to check the rest of her body. I think there's a Gemara Medrash that says something like that. Forehead, I don't remember why forehead. Okay, that's the Ben Ishai. Right. So what?
High forehead, what's called?
Is that
large forehead? The person is intelligent, whatever it is.
That's what they say, yeah.
Is that what Hod is? Hod in the man, maybe Hod is like where the crown sits.
You have to ask Rabbi Bates. He's the Kabbalist. I'm not the Kabbalist over here. The point of Vayomer Ish Elikim, the man of God said, Harpela. I'm missing the translation of the word Harpela. Rafa means like weak. So like Harpela means like let her loose. I don't mean let her. I'm missing like loosen your grip on her. There's a word that I'm looking for. I just can't. It's on the tip of my tongue. I don't know. What? Yeah, leave her alone. Leave her alone. Okay, fine. So what does the pasuk say? So she tells him that her son died, etc. So the pasuk says, pasuk v'teimer. This is Malachim Beis Perek Dalet. V'teimer hash'alti vein me'es adoni halay yomarti le'sashla isi. She said to him, "Did I ask you for a son? I said, don't mess with me. Don't make me go crazy. And you gave me a son anyways. I didn't ask you for it. And now the son dies. I'm worse off." Similar to what the Medrash was saying before. So what does Elisha say? Vayomer leGechazi. Elisha says to Gechazi, "Chagar maslecha, gird your loins, meaning put on your belt. V'kach mishanti v'yadcha, and take my walking stick in your hand." And I found in the Tosefta the Targum, which is one of the Mefarshim on Navi. So Tosefta the Targum says that this stick that Elisha had, this walking stick, had the Shem inscribed on it. So he gives his walking stick to Gechazi. He says, "Take my walking stick, v'leich, and go. Kisim se'ish le'sarachenu. If you bump into a man, don't greet him. V'chivoyachach ish le'sanenu. And when somebody greets you, don't answer back. Just go straight. V'samta mishanti al pnei hanar. And you'll take my walking stick and you'll put it on the face of this kid. And the implication is he'll come back to life, right?" And the Pesukim say that Gechazi went and he did this, and Gechazi over lefneihem vayasam es mishanis al pnei hanar, and he put the stick on the kid's head, face. In kashev, no voice and nothing crying out. Vayashav likrasei vayagid le'lemar lohi kitanar. And Gechazi went back to his rabbi, to Elisha, and he said, "Oh, the kid didn't wake up. It didn't work." That's what happens here in this story. Right? Elisha sends Gechazi to go revive the kid with his magical stick, right? And it doesn't work. But
it didn't work.
It didn't work.
Or Gechazi said it didn't work.
No, it didn't work. It didn't work. We're going to see. What's going to happen is that Elisha is going to say, "I'm going to have to do it myself." And Elisha himself went and revived the kid. But first, he sent Gechazi to go do it, and Gechazi did it, and it didn't work. Now the bench is going to discuss why didn't it work. And we'll see there's a few different mefarshim about exactly why it didn't work also. Fine. Lokach es hamishenes shebiyadai unisonu leGechazi. Elisha took his walking stick that was in his hand, and he gave it to Gechazi. Omar loy, he said to Gechazi, Al tadaber b'ficha kol davar b'uma. Don't say anything with your mouth. Until you go and you take this stick and you put it on the face of the kid and he comes back to life. Don't speak to anybody. Even though the Radha says, even though the lashon of the pasuk is, don't greet anybody, and if anybody greets you, don't greet him back, which sounds like, oh, the only problem is greeting, but I could like talk to other people or whatever. So the Radha says, no, the point is that even greeting people, even answering back a greeting, that you shouldn't do. But for sure, you shouldn't speak anybody, don't talk to anybody. That's what the Radha says. This is like, we say in Brachas, like if somebody greets you in the middle of Kriya Shema, you're allowed to answer back. So here Elisha is saying that over here, don't even answer back. It's mamish, don't speak a word of anything to anybody. Until you go and revive the kid and bring the kid back to life. Gechazi, it was like a joke in his eyes, and Gechazi didn't take it seriously. And every person that he bumped into, he would tell every person that he bumped into on the road, says, with this stick, you believe that this stick is going to bring the kid back to life? Therefore, it didn't work. Meaning, Elisha warned him, don't speak to anybody. Don't even answer back if anyone greets you. And not only did he not follow that, he even did negative. He took it as a joke, and each guy he met on the street was like, hey uncle, look at this stick. My Rebbe said that this is going to bring the kid back to life. How do you believe that? It's like making a joke out of it. So therefore it didn't work. What's the idea over here? Why shouldn't he talk? Fine, to make a joke out of it, fine. I understand why you shouldn't make a joke out of it. But why shouldn't he talk even? So the Razal explains that the idea is that so there won't be like a hefsek or a hesach hadas in between Elisha giving over the stick and Gechazi reviving the kid. Because it's really as if Elisha has the ability to revive the kid, and Gechazi obviously doesn't because he's not really holding there yet. He could be, but he's not holding there. He's only a student of Elisha, and if he works on himself, he could get to that point, but he wasn't holding there at that point. So it's sort of like Elisha sending Gechazi as a shliach, instead of me doing it, you're going to do it for me. As if you...
That's very interesting. Like a self does is it happens when one person is saying a bracha, whatever mitzvah is performing, and it interrupts with some talk and some saying something. So Elisha was the one who was, supposed to be quiet all this time. So
because
the stick wouldn't say anything. The stick was the kli.
But the guy who's going to be using the stick instead of Elisha, so he has to be coming from like Elisha giving him the stick. The way you would look at it is instead of me going and putting the stick on the kid, so I'm giving it over to you to put on the kid. And when you put it on the kid, it's as if I put it on the kid. But if you go and you do something else in between, so then it's not like I put it on the kid, it's like you put it on the kid because you interrupted between me giving it to you and you doing it. I think that's the Havana of the Radal. And then I found also one of the Rishonim says this, Marie Kara, who was a contemporary of Rashi. They say he was a student of Rashi, maybe not, maybe yeah, but he was definitely lived at the same time as Rashi. Marie Kara, or Kara, or whatever, and Melachim Bey's Perek Daled, Pasuk Chav Tes. They don't have it in this.
Art Scroll brings it. Sometimes they bring. Sometimes Rashi brings his commentary in his commentary. Sometimes
opposite.
Sometimes Rashi is he had Karo read his thing and he made some notes.
That's Rashi. Look, because I think they say that Kara quotes Rashi. Maybe I don't remember. Al-Kabbalah, the Marie Kara also says this pshat that he didn't want there to be a hefsek in between or a hesach hadas. Rashi takes a slightly different approach.
But a hesek from what?
What?
From what?
From Elisha passing over.
The passing over is the beginning.
Yeah, that's the beginning. Because Elisha's the one. Yeah, because Elisha's the one who's reviving it, not Gechazi. Gechazi is just the person that happens to be bringing the stick there. Oh, Rashi takes a slightly different approach. Rashi in the Sefer Malachim, Rashi says that what Elisha was telling him was that if you meet anyone in the road and anyone asks you where are you going, what are you doing, whatever, don't go and tell them what you're doing, because it's not the covet of the nace that everyone's going to know that this is the nace that's happening, and it's not coveted that such a thing should happen. Now that's what Rashi says. It's just interesting Rashi, because the Rashi says that Gechazi didn't listen, and wherever he went, he was telling people, I'm taking this stick to go revive the dead kid. Not necessarily that it was a joke, that he was like making a joke, like, could this stick revive, like it says a pig in the lizard. Not necessarily negative, but still going against what his Rebbe told him. Don't tell anybody about it, and he's going and telling everybody about it. That's what Rashi says. It's still interesting, because usually we say that you want to be Mefarsim and Nace. You want the whole world about the Nace, and bring out the point that like Hashem can.
After it happens.
Only after it happens?
Maybe only after it happens. But look how powerful this stick is. Who are you? I'm the helper of the
of Elisha.
Of Elisha Navi. Oh, you also have powers? If Elisha Navi's, after it happens, because Elisha Navi sent the stick, and whatever, the helper did it.
I don't know.
It's like kind of bragging in the middle of the street, saying, "Look, I can do it." Do you believe? Can people do it?
I mean, but we also find the opposite. Like when a Navi says that a nace is going to happen as a nevuah, it's looked at as a bigger nace, because there was a nevuah that said before the nace was going to happen that it was going to happen, and it happened. Oh, that's like a hush of a nace. Here it's not a Navi saying it; it's just like some kid saying that. I don't know. I'm a little bit bothered by the Rashi.
Yeah, we're learning something different here about missing and speaking and words and.
The Radak, when the Radak brings this down, so the Radak says that he didn't want Gechazi to take his time on the road. So he said, don't speak to anybody, because he didn't want it to take his time. And it says, so that's not necessarily what he did wrong. What he did wrong was like what the Medrash over here says, that he took it as a joke and started saying to people like, "Oh, you think this is going to really revive a kid or whatever?" That's what the Radak says. One more pshat. 1 second. This is Gishmak one. This is the Ashkenazi Rishonim, Paneach Raza, and the Imre Noyam, early Ashkenazi Sfarim, from the Bali Tesis, whatever. So in Parshas Balak, they talk about this story in Bamidbar, Parakaf Beis, Pasuk Chaf Tes, and they say that what happened was that first Gechazi took the stick. Why didn't it work? Why couldn't Gechazi revive the kid? Because he took his stick. As he was on the way, he saw a dead dog on the street, and he took the stick and he used the magic wand. Right? He took the magic wand and he revived this dead dog, and the dog came back to life. Right? So he used it up. Now when he went to the kid, it didn't work anymore, because he used up the powers that Elisha gave over to the stick.
Where did he see it?
Huh?
Where did Radak see it? Where is it written?
Where's what?
Where's the proof of Radak to say that?
Not Radak. This is the Paneach Raza and the Imre Noyam.
How do they know that?
There's some sort of Kabbalah that's what happened. And there's the Tosefta, the Targum also says a similar thing, that not that it was a dog, but it was a lion on the street that he found, a dead lion, and he revived the lion, and he used up the kaychas of the stick, and that's why it didn't revive the kid.
Too bad that lion didn't aim.
Yeah, look, if we want, we could speak about Gechazi. Gechazi is a very tragic figure. That he ends up losing his chelak in Elam Haba. He was originally Talmud of Elisha. And Elisha was sort of trying to be makar of him and keep giving him a chance. And he kept messing up. He messed up twice, right? And at the end, he takes kickbacks from Naaman, the general, and then Elisha kicks it off, gives him saras, and sends him away. That's the story of Gechazi.
Is there a question as to why Elisha sent the shliach at all?
Instead of him going himself?
It's such a big.
I don't know, but I think from like what I understand of how to understand these psukim, it would be that Elisha is trying to give Gechazi a chance to do something good.
So he'll just take the stick and put it.
Right, it's like a simple thing. It's like
talk,
right, and then like he messes it up. Okay, so now it didn't work. Elisha sent Gechazi to revive the kid. It didn't work. Until Elisha himself went on his own feet. And he put his face over the kid's face, and his eyes over the kid's eyes. and the Tzedakah changes the gear, so he takes out ein of al ein of and sends it to kapav al kapav, his hands over his hands, to make it congruent with the words of the pasuk. V'hischal mispalel, and Elisha began to pray, and he said, Rebbeinu shel olam, Master of the universe, kashem shel sisa nisim al yedei Eliyahu Rabbi, just like you performed miracles through my master Eliyahu, v'hichya es hameis, and you revived the dead, you brought back to life the dead, kach asei imi v'hachyei hanar hazeh. So too, you please Hashem, you should make the same type of miracle with me and bring back to life this kid. V'na'at alai, and Hashem listened to him. Shunamat says the pasuk v'yizayer hana'ar ad sheva pa'amim. The kid sneezed 7 times and he came back to life. So Elisha davened for the kid to come back to life, and the kid came back to life, and that's more or less the end of the story of it. The shaila is, why did Elisha have to mention Eliyahu and Navi? So we said earlier at the beginning of this year, we said that Elisha is the person who's continuing on the path of Eliyahu and Navi. We said that Elisha was going to be double Eliyahu, and all the nisim that Eliyahu and Navi was able to perform, Elisha is going to be doing double of that. So he had to mention Eliyahu and Navi, to remind the Shem, or to be ma'ur, that is chus, in order to bring back the kid. The Radal says a slightly different shot. The Radal says that being Machayim Meisim, bringing back a person who's dead to life, is a huge chiddush, something that's never been done before in the history of the world, except through Eliyahu and Navi. So if you're going to try to attach yourself to somebody in order to be ma'or the schus to bring out Tchias HaMeisim, Elisha is trying to attach himself to Eliyahu and Navi and say like I'm the student of Eliyahu and Navi, just like you did it for him, you should do it for me. And that's why he's Dafka mentioning Eliyahu and Navi.
It's very interesting also that the 2 people that were revived so far, one by Eliyahu was Yonah, and one by Elisha was Chavakuk. Perhaps. They're both Navi. They both became Nevi'im.
That's not. I mean, we're going to see later on other people came back to life that weren't necessarily Nevi'im, but from what we've seen so far, Eliyahu and Navi brought back to life. Yonah was a Navi, and Elisha's bringing back to life. What we're saying is Pashas Chavakuk and Navi, or maybe Oded and Navi, if you want. So just to finish it off. So the point is that Rabbi Shubal Kocha is saying that you brought me a story of Eliyahu and Navi bringing somebody back to life, and in the schus of the lady that gave him stuff that was being refined him. I'll tell you a better story, the story of Elisha, where it wasn't in the time of a famine, and he wasn't alone. He had his attendant Gechazi with him, and still the lady that was being refined him and supporting him, taking him to his home, she still had the special schus of tzedakah, and because of that, she was zeicha that when Elisha davened, Hashem listened to the prayer, and her kid was able to come back to life. Yeah, what are you saying?
Is it a raya that it was Chavakuk because she was told Ke'ez chayat choveket ven? Choveket being domain Chavakuk.
Yes. You're right.
Interchangeable.
When I said before that the Rekeach in his Pirush on Keheles says that this kid is Chavakuk, so that shtickle of the Rekeach is in Keheles on the words Eis Lachboik. There's a time to hug, and on that the Rekeach says a whole bunch of things about hugging, and he says this pasuk where it says Al Chivekes Bein is talking about Chavakuk, which is also a lashon neifel al lashon. So it's like a similar Jewish like that. But you're right. I don't know why. For some reason I didn't mention that. That's what the Rekeach says, but that's the word of the Rekeach. Okay. Shkar for coming. Have a good walk.